Well, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to another episode of Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm Xander Gibb, and covering for Ty Paul Egard today is broadcaster, libertarian, and freethinker Tony Losacco. Coming up on today's show, we'll be breaking down some of this week's hotter topics, looking at the results of this week's poll, and taking your calls. More to come in a mere moment. Today's show is dedicated to the memory of my fabulous friend, Stephen Bacon, a.k.a. Bacon Bits, a.k.a. Lady LaRue, the bravest person I have ever known. Heaven has gained one more fabulous angel. Save me a seat, Bacon Bits. We would also like to remember those who lost their lives in the shooting in Charleston, South Carolina this week. May they rest in peace and arise in glory. We'll be talking about that situation a little bit later on in the show. You can interact with us today during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the page. Keep scrolling down. Now, if that doesn't let you join in the chat, you need to join with either Facebook or Twitter. It's very simple. With the click of a button, you can be in on the conversation. You can also call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061 with your comments or questions or anything that you'd like to share with us. Or on Twitter, you can tweet us. My Twitter handle is at XanderGibb, XanderGibb, and Tony's Twitter handle is a Full Story 2014. FULLSTORY 2014. Tweet me if you're too shy, and I will make your point for you. Oh, yes, I will. Now, there's still time to vote in our poll at xandergibb.com. This week's question was, is it fair to create comparison between trans folk and Rachel Dolezal? Results to come later on, or you can even call in and tell us what you think on that subject or absolutely anything you want to get off your chest. The number again is 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. So Tony Losacco, as I said, is a broadcaster, writer, and free thinker. His uncommon approach to the world around him gives him a unique perspective to seek out and share the full story. So joining us once again today as co-host, please join me in welcoming the one, the only, Mr. Tony Losacco. Welcome back to the show, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, Xander. I can barely hear you. There's a lot of static. I had trouble getting through, too. Can you hear me okay?
No, you're kind of cutting out. I don't know if it's actually your phone or the system, but we'll plod along and see how we get along. I'm guessing it's probably the system if you're having problems hearing me too. If you're in chat or you're listening, can you let us know if you are getting this. Okay, so what a week it's been this week, Tony, not just with the horrific things that have been going on, but also for a lot of us personally, too. And if I hear one more person say this is because of Mercury retrograde, I'm going to put some Mercury in someone's coffee. Now, is it a sign of the times, all of the things that are happening? We're going to go on to break down some specific subjects later on. Is it a sign of the times? Is it Mercury in retrograde? What is it, Tony? What do you think?
Xander, I'm sorry. I can barely hear a word you're saying. It's all jumbled.
Right. Okay, Tony. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a song, and while I do, I'm going to contact Blog Talk and get them to do something about this. So while we are just sorting out the technical problems, I'm going to play for you. What are we going to play? Let's play. This is called The Character of a Good Man by LaRue Nebo, and we'll be back with you right after this. And Tony, if you could put the phone down and call back, and I'll get on to the technical support people. So this is the character of a good man.
Back?
Yes,
Did
please.
you say call back? Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah. This is the character of a good man by LaRue Nebo while we sort out these technical issues.
Can sometimes lead you in the wrong direction, but it's never too late, baby, to make a change, my friend. And if you seek them, you shall find. Ask, and it shall be given. Remember, all of the good things come from heaven, and the character of a good man is his honesty and his compassion. And the loving hope it comes shining through, and it's never too big or too bad. It's sure to you all good too. Whoa, 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 whoa. And if you learn how to live and learn how to forgive and never take for granted all the little things, and if you're looking for a higher plane, remember nothing ever stays the same. And a good man in this lifetime can be sometimes hard to find. And the character of a good man is his honesty and his compassion. And the loving hope it comes shining through, and it's never too big or too bad, showing to you all the Whoa, 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 whoa. And the character of a good man is his honesty and his compassion. And the loving hope it comes shining
That was indeed the character of a good man by the fabulous LaRue Nebo. Make sure you check her out on iTunes and social media. I think we may be, fingers crossed, have sorted out our audio issues out now, Tony. So I asked you the question before we had these issues about whether, how you explained all of this and how you feel about people describing it as Mercury in retrograde.
Mercury in retrograde. Well, I don't know how to react. What's that
Me
supposed
either.
to mean?
Oh, I don't know. It's supposed to be the stars in alignment, and that's why all these bad things are happening. But I think you and I know it goes a lot deeper than that.
Yes. Can you hear me, Xander?
I can hear you. Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. I thought I lost you again.
No.
Well,
No.
the stars could be aligned against us. I know that somebody was aligned against me. I had one of my former coworkers call me, and they said, "quote You're still an asshole." They responded to one of my political posts.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a vote of confidence for you, and I
Yeah.
think with everything else that's been going on this week, people tend to have these inconsequential dalliances, but I guess we got to just pray for them. So I want to go into our main story of this week, Tony, regarding the fact that 9 people were shot and killed in cold blood in Charleston, South Carolina, by 21-year-old Dylan Roof. They welcomed him in during a Bible study / prayer session inside the Emmanuel African American Methodist Episcopal Church, and he stayed there for an hour. And he said, "You raped our women and have taken over our country," as he fired his gun. Children and adults had to play dead in order not to be killed. And apparently Ruth looked at one woman and told her that she was going to live so that she could tell the story of what had happened. He allegedly stood over a survivor and uttered racially inflammatory statements before leaving the Bible study room where the victims were shot, according to warrants. Now, Rufa, who is now in police custody, allegedly confessed to killing the 9 people at the church on Wednesday night, according to law enforcement. Now, the next day, Deborah Dills was traveling to her part-time job at the florist in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, when she spotted a dark Hyundai Elantra with South Carolina plates. The car and its driver, Miss Dills, 51, soon thought matched the description in the police alert she had heard on the morning news. Now, family members of the victims gave emotional statements during the initial court appearance on Friday, some of them breaking into sobs, as one after another they told the man suspected of killing their loved ones that they forgave him. "You took something really precious from me. I will never talk to her again," the daughter of 70-year-old Ethel Lance, one of the 9 people killed in Wednesday's massacre, said. "But I forgive you and have mercy on your soul. You hurt me, you hurt a lot of people, but God forgives you. I forgive you." Felicia Sanders, mother of the youngest victim, 26-year-old Taiwanza Sanders, also spoke. "Every fiber in my body hurts, and I will never be the same." Sanders survived the shooting by playing dead. "We welcome you Wednesday night into our Bible study with open arms. You have killed some of the most beautiful people that I know," she said in court. "As we said in the Bible study, we enjoyed you. But may God have mercy on you." Ruth appeared in court via closed circuit video link from a holding cell inside the Charleston jail. The 21-year-old was charged with 9 counts of murder and 1 firearms charge. "I forgive you, and my family forgives you," Anthony Thompson, the husband of 59-year-old Myra Thompson, said. "But we would like you to take this opportunity to repent, change your ways. Although my grandfather and the other victims died at the hands of hate, this is proof. Everyone's plea for your soul is proof. They lived in love, and their legacies will live in love." The grandson of 74-year-old Daniel Simmons said, "So hate won't win. A hateful person came to this community with some crazy idea he'd be able to divide, but all he did was unite and make us love each other even more." Charleston Mayor Joseph Riley told the Associated Press Now, President Obama, in my opinion, used the issue to highlight gun control once again. He said America needs to reckon with the fact that this doesn't happen in other places. Oh, really? Tell that to France. This, as far as I know, was a legal gun bought for Roof by his father. This is not terrorism, some have said. However, the Oxford Dictionary defines terrorist as a person who uses violent and intimidating methods in the pursuit of political aims. This is not racism, some have said. However, one white person killing a group of black people is racism in my book. If Roof were black, they would have said it was racist. This is not a hate crime, some have said, but this was hardly an act of love. Now, our deepest heartfelt condolences go out to the family of the victims and the local community. Now, what's your first response to this, Tony? I know you made a video today, and I watched that, and I pretty much agreed with most of the things you said. But what is your initial reaction to this heinous act?
My initial reaction to it when I heard the news with sadness and tears and prayers and condolences for the families, I immediately, posted to Facebook about, let's pray for these poor people, and just a sense of disbelief. Almost, it almost went back to 9/11 for me. It was almost the same emotion I felt when 9/11 happened, like a sense of total horror and disbelief that this could happen in the United States of America. And because it's just not another mass shooting, and that's the thing. It's racial. It's out of pure hate, pure racism, and in a house of worship. So it really did bring back feelings of 9/11, like, oh my God, not in America.
So what about the motivation? Because I've seen a plethora of reasoning from people with various different leanings. It was this, it was that, it was pure evil, it wasn't this, it was that, it was the other. Now, I'm sure you would agree that every group, every denomination, every section is going to have a different ideology on it, and that's fair. That's fair enough. But what do you make of that? Let's first of all deal with the fact that the president used this as an opportunity to politicize what had happened.
I think in terms of your direct question with the president, and I have some harsh words, and we'll save that for later, for the Republican right, some of the individual candidates trying not to call this racism is equally despicable.
Exactly.
But as far as the president goes, when I heard he was going to speak, and I said this in my video, I felt a sense of comfort, and I felt good for the president. We need to hear from you. Just like 9/11, we were looking, where's the president, Like, we were all looking to him as the leader, in shock, in sadness. We wanted to hear from the president. I don't think anybody didn't at that point. Like, what does he have to say? And I'm thinking he's going to have words of condolences, assure us, that the person will be brought to justice, etc. And when he expressed emotion and anger at it, that I understand. He's a human being. And it's appropriate sometimes to share how you feel. But when he went off topic and started talking about gun control, he devalued the lives of every one of those people that died. And he turned it political. I think that is the most disgusting thing that he has done as president of the United States. When political candidates were canceling appearances not to be political, the Republican candidates were canceling appearances not to touch it. People were canceling all over. Just let them mourn. That was not the time. Had it been a week later or something like that, I would understand using it to advance his agenda. But in the midst of a national tragedy, to politicize and divide, and that's the problem with this president. He divides people. That should have been a time you had black and white singing together, holding hands. Good could have come out of this. I mean, I saw the pictures, of the people uniting, black, white, all races, all cultures, all religions. He could have been a part of that.
Sidebar,
and instead he chose to divide.
But as a sidebar, Tony, has this not been a constant theme of the Obama administration? Because I would have thought that a black/African American, whatever terminology you want to use, and I'm being polite, would have brought black and white together in this country. But I don't feel like that has occurred with this administration. Do you?
No, and I do give him credit. He chose to speak personally, and that's why they didn't issue a statement. But I would have rather have heard a statement at that point. I mean, he did not address this right. He has missed every opportunity to unite the world and the nation. I mean, he constantly divides. Look at what France and the terrorism thing. Every world leader but him appeared. He misses the mark of a leader, and this president is not a leader. He doesn't know how to get things done, and he divides people. That should have been a time of national unity for the president to say, this isn't tolerated in America anymore. We've moved beyond this, and as Americans, we're standing up against it. That's what I wanted to hear from my president, not gun control.
So what about the idiotic statement of this doesn't happen elsewhere? What about ISIS? What about what happened with the incident with Charlie Hebdo in France? So that was an incorrect statement. This does happen elsewhere, and I'm pleased. I assure you, I'm not trying to legitimize what has occurred. I'm trying to show the erroneous nature of that statement.
Yes, and he did, as Bill O'Reilly pointed out on the show, provide himself some political cover by using the word frequency, and that was very deliberate. This doesn't happen with the frequency elsewhere. But no matter what, I mean, it just was inappropriate. It was completely inappropriate. Unless he was going to come forth on that stage and somehow magically get rid of gun violence, anything to do with that was inappropriate. The focus should have been on the families and the victims and how we can unite as a country behind South Carolina and show the rest of the world this is not America, this is not what we stand for. Instead, all he showed the world is division and partisan politics, and it's a disgrace to the presidency of the United States.
So let's go a little bit beyond this with reference to the fact that people have claimed that this is a gun control issue, where I have several issues with this, because for me it's not just about gun control. It's about mental health, and it's about drug use, and it's about racism, and it's about the fact that as a country we've learned nothing since the shootings of those kids in that school in Newtown. What has changed since then? Because I'm feeling exactly the same way about this as I did about that.
Well, that's because nothing has changed, and it's going to continue to happen because the politicians deflect from the real issues. And that's the thing. You've seen this in the Republican field. I want to point out that there were two Republican candidates that refused to call this racism. One claimed it was an attack on Christianity and it was religious-based and used it for an idiotic statement to claim the persecution of Christians, and the man will be held accountable for God for lying to the American people for that. That was one candidate. The other candidate twisted it to say, oh, well, it was because the kid was on drugs. That's a lie, too. However, the politicians, just like I said, they manipulated the topic of what actually happened. See, it's important to face this in America. There's still hateful, racist people out there that will kill because your skin is different. They might be a minority, but they're still around. And see, some politicians couldn't bring themselves to deal with that fact. Well, you know what? On the issue of gun control, it's not about background checks. If you notice, Xander, and I focused in on this on my video. Everybody talks about background checks. Background checks are not going to do anything to prevent this. The issue is mental illness and the fitness of the individual to own a gun, and that can only be addressed through mental health or psychiatric care of some sort, where you're requiring people, if you're going to have a government intervention, and this is my feeling as a libertarian, I'm against gun control in general. I'm against any sort of government intervention. But if you're going to have government intervention, fix the problem. A good example of that goes back to the 1930s when we had the bank robberies, like, Dillinger, and, we've all seen the movies with the Tommy guns and everything. Well, they made bank robbery a federal offense, and they got a handle on it and put the FBI in charge. Why can't we do that with mass shootings? Why can't we relabel them to events, and any mass shooting that's handled immediately by the FBI, they get jurisdiction. Furthermore, with background checks, never mind a background check, let's have a 30-day waiting period, and let's have the person get a mental health evaluation. Each of these killers gave signals before, and if they were in therapy for a period of a month, that somebody would have caught on probably.
Well, here's the thing for me about background checks, Tony. It's like when you start a job with the local authority and they do a background check on you, all that ever finds out is what you've been caught for doing. It doesn't say anything about your frame of mind, your mental health, or any of those things. So background checks are kind of useless. It only says that you've not been in trouble with the law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't prove really what kind of person that you are, because I'm sure that most serial killers have not really been in lots of trouble with the authorities before they explode, as it were. But there's a secondary issue with this for me. With regards to, I'm totally prepared to admit guns terrify me, and I think a part of that is because I don't know how to use one safely. And that's not to say that I would necessarily want to own one. But why, as a people, are we not keeping an eye on people more? And would you be having people in your circle that behaved that way and not actually notice it and comment on it and maybe do something about it?
Well, and see, that's the thing, and I want to be very careful because we don't want everybody spying on everybody else. The government's got that if you see something, say something. But in some cases, you do just have to say something. Once again, and with background check, I'm not talking about background check. When I say gun control, what I'm saying is two things. I'm saying if we're going to have gun control, first of all, we have to repeal the Second Amendment because it's a guaranteed constitutional right. Then let's do it the right way, just like they repealed prohibition. Let's have a national debate, and let's repeal that part of the Second Amendment. Pass a new amendment to the Constitution and say you can own a gun, but these are the conditions. And I think that's totally legitimate because back when they made the Constitution, there were only muskets and revolver guns. No, they didn't envision nuclear bombs. They didn't envision automatic weapons. So you have to take I'm speaking from as a libertarian here, which I'm probably going to get a lot of libertarians upset with me, but you have to take the Constitution in context. The context of the right to bear arms was meant in terms of muskets and revolvers. It was not. They did not think of today's weapons in today's society. Therefore, it's time to update. The question is, if you're going to update, yes.
Go on, finish your statement. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if you're going to update and you're going to have the government get involved, my thing is, let's get the government involved in the right way. Like I said, why not have a 30-day waiting period, have a full mental health evaluation, have somebody go through the screening, have a counselor sign off, yes, there's nothing that I can find mentally wrong with them, and have them drug tested. That's going to fix things more than a background check.
And the only people that would probably have a problem with that are those that would have something to hide. But I want to backtrack again a little. I want to ask you about the Constitution. Now, you've been involved in lots of shows where we've talked about the Constitution with reference to gun control. Now, a lot of my Republican friends, yes, I have Republican friends, listeners, tell me that they think that the Constitution is set in stone, but other Republican friends will confirm they think it is a working document. What do you think our forefathers had in mind when they wrote the Constitution, Tony? Was it something that was to be set in stone, or was it something that was meant to be a working document?
They answered that question, and we have answered this throughout history. When we gave 18-year-olds the right to vote, when we gave women the right to vote, when we ended slavery, the founding
women can vote?
created... I'm not sure that's a good idea.
disgusting.
Just kidding, ladies. Just kidding.
Yes,
kidding.
just joke. Don't write in because we don't really care. It's just a joke. Sorry, carry on, Tony.
But they implemented the amendment process. That's the Bill of Rights to the Constitution with 10 amendments. And they left room to amend it, to have this as a living document that grows. They made it very difficult to amend so that people couldn't make quick changes like we see other governments come and go and fall, but they made an amendment process for it to be a living document. They did not intend for people to just ignore it and usurp it with laws without amending it. See, that's how important they took our civil liberties. That's why I'm saying if we're going to do gun control, yes, the Constitution has to be abided by, and it says you have the right to bear arms. Well, the solution is to go to the amendment process, to have the states propose amendments or call a constitutional convention and amend the document and say, okay, now we're passing the next amendment. We're in a new time. This is what we're saying. This is us, the American people. We, the people of the United States. It has our approval. The problem with what I'm saying is you know darn well there's too many people who will be against that and it will never pass. But we cannot overrule our fellow Americans. That's what liberty is about. Perhaps, but the one thing I agree with the president on, I just think I essentially agreed with him. I just thought wrong place, wrong time, so to speak. You know, I think as more these tragedies occur, God forbid the next one, how many more shootings or what will happen next that will be bad enough to make people realize, okay, yeah, we understand the right to own guns, but we also understand we don't want our children killed in schools and churches.
Exactly. But doesn't there have to be a point where the minds can meet? We have a law, we have constitutional rights to bear arms, to own guns, but surely there should be some limitations on that. And I have to question, it's one thing if you live in a rural area and you kill your own food, I totally appreciate that. But why would any self-respecting parent, especially one that kind of feels that their kid might have a few issues, buy them a gun for their 21st? I mean, to me, that smacks of lunacy.
You know, you and I can't understand it, and I just defer to cultural differences with that, honestly, because there are families that are raised with guns, and that's very important to them. However, the whole gun issue, I mean, I don't understand why. Like you said, where's the common sense? Where's the middle ground here? Like, I've heard the fear. The biggest fear is the government will take the guns away from everybody, okay? And background screenings or whatever. So, okay, how about this? Let's have that waiting period I'm talking about. Let's have a mental health counselor certify that they're not a lunatic. Let's do a drug test. Let's give them an appeal process in case the counselor's against them and they get a bad shake. And then let's maybe destroy the records and not have a record of the ownership. You know, if that's a concern that the government's going to come to my door. But let's do something for God's sake.
That sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean, let's make like we do with HIPAA. You know, let's make the records destroyable. Not even with HIPAA, not secret, but let's make the requirement. Okay, after you pass the screening, after you do everything you should do, and you've passed, we're going to destroy
the records. Are destroyed.
Right.
This is the thing.
There's got to be some common sense here.
Rights? But what constitutional rights are affected by that, Tony? Because here's the thing. Okay, in America, American citizens have the right to bear arms. But should that be the right of every American? And I think that that's the issue. I don't think it should be. I don't want to kind of restrict the rights of any American citizen. But if you're not in your right mind, or if you're on mental health meds, or have a history of mental health problems, and we've talked extensively on this show how we don't want to stigmatize it, but why should the public be put at risk by the fact that someone with a mental health issue or that's on medication is allowed to legally own a gun?
Well, and I want to be careful with this because most of them have not had diagnosed mental health issues. And like you said,
Right.
we don't want to stigmatize those with mental health. Usually we know enough not to give somebody with a known mental health condition a gun. It's the ones that
Right.
appear normal that haven't had the diagnosis yet, which is why I'm saying get them to a counselor or therapist, give them at least a month of sessions so that the counselor or the therapist could work out, no, there's something not right here.
Absolutely.
We need to hold off or something. And also, there is another aspect, and I will defend the gun owners on this aspect. And I mentioned it in my video. Yes,
Okay,
go ahead.
Go on. I was just going to say, before you share that, I want to just share the phone number very quickly. You are listening to Xandermonium. We're live with myself, Xander Gibb, and my co-host, Tony Losacco. And you can call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061 if you want to chime in on this or anything related or absolutely anything with regards to your opinion. Okay, so continue, Tony. You were gonna talk about gun owners.
Well, I do, and once again, and I hope I'm not defending too many people, and I want to be very careful in saying this.
Did you say offending or defending?
Defending gun owners necessarily, but at the same time, there's
Right.
two sides to every story. Okay?
There is.
Now, the other side of this, which I'm sure we're going to hear from the NRA and the gun activists, but I'll say it myself and I'll admit to it. Just as quickly as a gun took the lives of those 9 people, somebody, an off-duty police officer or armed security guard or somebody with a concealed carry permit could have also have prevented that tragedy if there was a gun owner there. They could have shot
Right.
him. He had a handgun, and lives would have been saved too. And it's important it's important to acknowledge the truth
point.
on all these matters.
It is. 2 things. Great point, Tony. First thing, for me, there are 3 sides to every story. There's your perspective and my perspective, and then the way it actually is. But the second part of my point is, I want to ask you this question. What if the responsible gun owner had been the first one shot?
Well, then there would have still been a weapon there that somebody could have possibly used. That goes back to my mental health scenario, okay?
Right.
Like, I can't guarantee you if we had mental health screenings that somebody's not going to get a gun and do it. You can stop the frequency. Same thing with a gun owner there. Yeah, the guy might have been the first guy shot or whatever, but it would have given a better chance. And that's what security is about. There's a concept in security, and it doesn't mean preventing everything. They do this with terrorism. It means making it harder. And right now, the truth of the matter is it is way too easy because the only things they have are background checks, and the people committing this is the lunacy of it. I don't understand it. It's like they've put their deaf ears on. The people committing these violent, horrible acts haven't had criminal backgrounds. Background checks don't do nothing. I mean, you have to come up with a real solution to stop it.
Absolutely. And the thing is that I don't know. I mean, we've had whole shows on this issue about gun control, and we've had people on from the NRA, et cetera, and even people who are totally pro-gun ownership have said that they think that there is room for some change with regards to the gun ownership laws. But here's the thing for me. I can totally accept if you want to own a revolver to protect yourself, or that if you live in a rural area or you happen to have a lifestyle where you hunt for your own food, et cetera, or you want to have a rifle because you live in a rural area to protect yourself, I can totally accept that. But here's the thing that blows my mind. Why does any private citizen need a rocket launcher or an automatic weapon? Because the difference is, and I've discussed this with people who work in the police force, and I've also discussed it with people who are from pro-gun lobbies, that the difference is that one squeeze of a non-automatic gun only lets out one bullet, but the squeeze of an automatic weapon releases more than one bullet. I don't know if it's 8 or 12 or, don't quote me on it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
I would, and that's where reasonable gun control comes in. Once again,
right.
That goes back to my statement about the Founding Fathers. They weren't automatic weapons, so the right guaranteed. You have to look at things with common sense. The right to bear arms
right.
was guaranteed in terms of the arms they knew.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
If you want to take that statement literally, then you and I have the right to go out and purchase an atomic bomb. It's
exactly.
the right to bear arms, right? I mean, but I'm sure if you or I try to go out and purchase an atomic weapon, we'd be arrested.
Do they sell them in Walmart still?
Atomic weapons? No.
Aisle 4 next to the cat food, I think.
I hear the CIA is giving some free runs out to Muslims nowadays, though. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, if the way things are going on, we'll be giving the components to Iran in order to exterminate more Jews, but that's for another show, I think.
Yes.
But let's kind of. I want to. This is the thing. When the Newtown disaster atrocity occurred, there were all these people saying, this is what we should learn from this. This is what we should learn from this. And I feel like we have learned absolutely zero. Now, I'm sure these things are going to still happen because while there are guns around, there is a propensity for that. And it's a ridiculous ideology to say, okay, let's take away all the guns. Now, let's just imagine we did that. Let's say we took the guns from the police and we took the guns from private citizens. Then what about all of the illegal weapons out there? We would be at the mercy of criminals.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I do address it in my video. I've seen some crazy folks out there. I don't mean mental illness crazy. I mean, in my opinion, just out there.
Right.
But I've seen some people calling for all-out gun confiscation by the government. And something, I understand an emotional reaction, but for heaven's sakes, take a minute to take your brain out of your you-know-what and put it back functioning. That didn't work with the drug war. The criminals can still get drugs. The criminals would still get guns, and we would all be screwed if they tried to confiscate all the weapons. And also, I do buy into what the NRA says on that. You don't want the government being the only source of weapons. That's one of the reasons they put the Second Amendment in there. I mean, the Declaration of Independence is clear that it says if the government becomes intolerable, the people have a right to rebel. No NSA, no federal government. I am not advocating a rebellion. Please don't come to my home.
Is that the CIA knocking on your door right now?
Yes. But
now,
the Declaration of Independence does state that.
Peaceful rebellion, which I think is totally acceptable.
Yes. So I don't want no visits from any FBI agents or court subpoenas. But I am merely pointing out the Declaration of Independence does assert the right of the people to overthrow an unjust, oppressive government. I'm not saying that our government is oppressive and unjust, but they put the Second Amendment in there to protect people should that ever happen. Should, say, the President Obama tomorrow say, I'm not stepping down, I'm declaring a dictatorship. Well, the Second Amendment is in there to protect gun rights so that, oh, well, we could fight this, you know.
Some people think he's going to do that, you know. Some people
I have
think
heard those crazy people say that, yes.
Before the end of his term of office for his administration, that he will declare martial law and will begin a dictatorship. I mean, here's the thing, you know, I started off really liking this guy and liking his ideologies, but as time went on, especially towards the end of the first term and the beginning of the second term, I was very turned off. Now, am I racist? No. You know, do I dislike some of his policies? Yes. But here's the thing for me: there's a lot of kind of idiocy out there with regards to what he might do or what he's going to do. Now, he's done some pretty silly things. I'm sorry, Baz, but you have. But I don't know that he would declare martial law and become a dictator. I mean, we would all need guns then for sure.
Well, and I completely agree. And I think sometimes people lose track of the government's legitimate power. And once again, even libertarians get boxed into this, where this is my mentality, and I'm not going to think of exceptions because this is what I believe. But however, you know, let's say a meteor was crashed into the United States tomorrow, or there was an alien invasion, right? We probably want them to declare martial law. You know, like in Boston, I wasn't pointing out that the martial law wasn't called for. I was saying it was done sneakily, and that was wrong. You know, I mean, in times of 9/11 and things like that, you know, there are legitimate times where the government does take power to preserve the common defense, and that's a legitimate function of any government throughout history. And to say that Obama's just planning that President Obama's planning on taking over the country, I mean, they said that about Bush on the left. I mean, you hear these rumors by fanatics on both sides every couple of years. Hopefully I won't eat those words, you know.
I think both parties, I think that there are liberal freaks and there are conservative freaks. And here's the thing, I get equally as pissed off with the ones on both sides. And I hate people who generalize, and I have to point that out too. I kind of feel like it's a personal mission of mine to do so. But inevitably, we're going to get these people on both sides of the aisle. We have a caller. Let's bring them on. Hi, you're live on Xandermonium. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Justin. It's Justin Lopez. How you doing, Xander?
Hey, Justin. How you doing? So we've been discussing the things that have been going on in Charleston, and I noticed today you posted quite a lot of things. You want to share a little bit with us about your take on this and your response to some of the opinions that are floating around out there about why it happened, what we should do, and what it spells?
Oh, geez. I mean, yeah, I did. I posted something about, I guess, just mass shootings in general. It seems to be a hot button issue nowadays.
Right.
I mean, the thing that happened in Charleston is horrible. I mean, just a horrific event. I mean, that is just something that, like, I mean, I can't really even begin to understand the kind of mindset it takes for a person to do that kind of thing. So in that case, it's horrible. But I feel like, I guess I posted something a little earlier today, a bit just about the frequency of mass shootings, mass murders in general in the world. And it seems like it is a uniquely American problem for some reason. If you listen to the media, that, like, you know, you'd think that it just is happening in America. It happens everywhere. And it's not even just in the form of guns. Vehicular homicides happen all the time. Bombings happen all the time. Chemical warfare happens all the time. Arson happens all the time. People who are going to who have it within themselves to kill, have that rage inside themselves that they're going to do that, they're going to find a way to do it. And I mean, if we look at, you know, I mean, I think everyone is really so quick to throw guns as the problem that we don't actually. It's kind of just a lazy conclusion that we draw. We kind of say, like, well, let's take everything and throw it into one pile and say, well, guns is the kind of like the issue that seems to, that like in every one of these cases in America, it happens to be with a gun. Well, it's because guns are readily available, but I guarantee if someone has the propensity in them to kill and take lives, they're going to find a different way to do it. They're going to, whether it be burning down their workplace or whatever it is that they're going to do. So I think that it's kind of a really rash decision. Actually, I look at it as a class warfare problem. Actually,
right.
I look at wealth disparity. I mean, if you look at the other country that rivals us in terms of mass killings, it's China, and it's another country with an enormous wealth disparity between the classes. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't, and a lot of people will disagree with me about that, but I'll say, there's a reason why everyone calls, Rick Santorum crazy, and you don't see him going around killing people with guns. He enacts his warfare in a totally different way, and that's I'd like to know what you have to say about it.
Absolutely. You probably didn't listen to the first part of the show, but kind of you said in a nutshell a lot of what we've been saying already. Would you agree with that, Tony?
Yes, absolutely. I take issue with the Rick Santorum just because he was one of the political candidates I was referring to who claimed it was about Christians. I'll actually say the candidate's name, and I don't believe this was about religious persecution, so I think that was very wrong of Rick Santorum to politicize it just like the president. But other than that, I mean, I completely agree with Justin. This guy, if he didn't have a gun, would have made pipe bombs like the Boston bomber probably, Somebody is going to kill if they have it in them. I mean, it's an excellent point, and taking the guns away will not solve the problem. That's why I'm saying about the mental health screenings. If you want to do something legitimate, do something that way and get at the real issues, the pill epidemic in this country, the mental illness, the homeless getting kicked out, like you said, the wealth disparity where people get so frustrated where they feel like they need to do it, the bullying in school. I mean, these are the issues that nobody wants to tackle because they're tough. And nobody wants to deal with them.
So let me ask you, Justin, do you feel that this was race related? Do you feel that this was a hate crime? And was this terrorism?
Oh, it absolutely was a racial issue. I mean, I don't think there shouldn't be any debate about that. The shooter said himself that was. I mean, I think I read an article the other day about the cousin that the cousin said about that kid, and he said that it happened. He said he wasn't always like that. It happened a couple of years ago when apparently he had a crush on a girl, and then she ended up dating a black guy, and it kind of drove him over the edge a little bit. I mean, race absolutely, I'm sure, was the issue. He didn't go into any church and start an open fire. I mean, that's the thing though. See, we look at mass shootings and we throw them all into this category of mass shootings, and we find that guns is kind of the issue. But really, there's a whole range of issues, what Tony was just saying about mental health being an issue. I mean, our country, look at the way we treat people who are mentally ill. We put them in jail. We incarcerate more people in this country than any other country. We're throwing them into this lawless environment where they have to fight for themselves. They have to fight on a daily basis. We're making hardened criminals, and a lot of them get out in 5 years and they're repeat offenders. We wonder why they're repeat offenders. I mean, our country, there's so many problems that we need to deal with, and we always find just the laziest way to regulate something. And I mean, I look at the drug war as another thing. I'm like, if our country was any good at doing anything, I'm like, it wouldn't be so easy. I could go right now and get any drug I want whenever I want to, and there's a war against drugs. They're illegal. The only thing the legislation has done is made it more dangerous and made it more expensive. That's the only thing.
I saw a report the other day that apparently, I think it was in Portugal, that they stopped making drugs illegal, and they threw less money at the policing and more money into actually helping people that were addicted to drugs. And the overdose rate in Portugal has dwindled to an all-time low. Do you think do you think that in this country, if we changed our approach to gun crime, that we could change the outcomes?
Yes, I think so. I think it's absolutely important that we do. I think that we should definitely take a look at how we look at guns in general. I mean, there are over 300 million gun owners in this country. I mean, it's not like we don't see 300 million deaths every day from gun violence.
No.
You know, like I mean, there are more like I looked at top 10 causes of death in America, and they're mostly obesity related, mostly health related. When you start getting into accidents, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know exactly. Let's start telling people what they. Yeah, let's start banning let's start regulating how much food people can eat and whatever. I mean, there's this thing. We have a lack of accountability problem in our country too. I mean, we're so quick to blame things, and nobody ever wants to take responsibility for anything. You know, so
absolutely.
I mean, I just think that the gun regulation would be just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's not gonna stop anything.
And Xander, may I make 2 points actually?
Sure,
Xander?
of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's two industries here that I do assign blame to in the mass shootings that nobody wants to talk about. Two, and I addressed this on my video. The first is the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I can't say in this case what this young man was on, but there were some stories floating around that he was on the pills, okay? And in other incidents, we've had similar stories. Okay, there are young people committing suicide, getting more violent, having side effects because these pills meant to control them are messing them up in the head. So I believe the pharmaceutical industry bears some responsibility more than that. And I don't know, I'm stirring the pot with this because especially as a libertarian, I'm calling for censorship. I don't think the national media should be allowed to release these people's names and put them on TV. I think it leads to the next one.
I agree with that. Wow.
Why can't we just have a law that says they can only say shooter 1, shooter 2, and not show their face? It inspires the next one. It's lunacy. I mean, sometimes censorship's
because he's got what he wanted, hasn't he? Everybody in the world knows who this kid is now. And that's clearly what he. I mean, apparently he'd said to friends that he wanted to start a revolution and a race war, and I think that we've given him exactly. I say we, as in the royal we, collectively as a country, we've given this kid exactly what he wanted, and that's a great point. Would you agree with that, Justin?
Oh God, yes. I mean, look at what. I mean, I said this before on Facebook actually yesterday. I was like, if that kid was any kind of good looking, he would have ended up on the Rolling Stone magazine like we did with the Sarnaev. Remember that guy? They took him. They made him a freaking rock star somehow by putting him on the front of the Rolling Stone magazine. Because why? Because he's a good looking kid. I mean, are we out of our minds? We must have lost our mind. We're sensationalizing murderers. We're making them into like comic book villains. I mean, it's really
right.
I mean, and we wonder why it's happening more and more. And I totally agree with Tony on, the pharmaceutical stuff. I mean, I personally I've been on medication before. I've taken stuff for. I mean, like a lot of people my age. I'm going to be turning 30 soon. So a lot of people in my generation, we were kind of like that first group of people who were getting thrown on all the attention deficit disorder meds, and, like the Ritalins and the Adderalls and all those kind of things. Just knowing from taking that, they always leave the side effects. Then they give you more pills to treat your side effects. So I was taking something for sleep. I was taking something for attention deficit. I was taking something for a neurological condition that I had that was creating, like it was starting to numb me. So then they had put me on like amphetamines. I'm like these are kind of. And I know that, when I was taking a medication for a neurological condition, it made me very numb. And I remember not having the peaks and falls of moods, So it's like, as a human being, how do you live like that? You're gonna.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that I got to stop taking it. I stopped taking it within a year, but there are a lot of.
And whilst they say these drugs are tested, I don't think they know until further down the line exactly what these drugs do, because how they're going to affect with your what effects they're going to have with your test subjects. Even if you have 50 test subject, that doesn't tell you how it's going to react in the rest of the population, does it?
No.
Xander, I'll go one further with you. As a mental health professional and somebody that studied the field, these drugs were not tested for developing brains, for the adolescent brain. We're giving children now. I've seen children as young as 7 years old on antipsychotics. And I'm not saying that happens frequently or all the time, but the thing is these drugs were not tested. And I'm seeing horrible side effects sometimes, but nobody wants to talk about that because, like Justin said, just like with the media, they'd lose some ratings if they didn't flash this picture. It's all about the money because you don't want the pharmaceutical industry to lose some money, and you don't want the media to lose some money from ratings because they couldn't broadcast the picture all over the place, and everybody wants to know who. But it's time for us as people, as Americans, to stand up and say enough's enough. And that power's in each of us, each parent to say, no, you're not putting my child on that medication. I refuse it. What are the side effects? No, this isn't happening. And for each of us to turn the channel when we see Fox News or CNN broadcasting the face of the killer right after they said, oh, we don't want to glorify him, but here's the picture. I mean, I took a fit when I saw that coverage.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And what's that phrase? If we do not learn from the events of history, we are doomed to repeat them. We said earlier on in the show that what have we learned since the Newtown massacre? We've learned absolutely nothing. What does that say about us as a nation?
I mean, it's hard to, it's hard to. I think we're past that point now. We have to just understand that everything is sensationalism. I mean, social media is just so accessible. We have phones now, and we're able to just take photos and videos and tweet and whatever whenever we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so there's really it's kind of a hard it's hard to draw a line and say, well, we can't show photos of the killer anymore. But the thing is, I think it's we can't really enforce that. It's like it's hard to and I understand it's like more of like a leading by example type thing where hopefully more and more people will stop paying attention. Like I saw in sports, right? Whenever you have they used to show the people who used to run on the field and streak or whatever when they run the field. They used to show it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Then the MLB would say, hey, stop putting them on TV. I bet it'll happen less. And if that's exactly what happens. It just people don't do it. They're looking for their moment, their 10 seconds of fame. That's about as much as you get nowadays.
And as a libertarian, I want to be careful to make a distinction. I'm not advocating. I would never advocate for the censorship of free speech or free thought. However, I'm simply advocating for the censorship of somebody's name, and that's very different than censoring a thought or an expression. I'm saying just hold the name or I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm for censorship or restricting free speech. No, I'm talking about blacking out somebody's name from the coverage. That's it. Not the biography, not what they did. I mean, I definitely want to make sure that everybody understands I'm not for censorship of thoughts or the media necessarily. Just let's get rid of the name and the face,
Absolutely. And so I'm sure we can all agree that there's lots of room for learning from this for us as a country. And sadly, we've really gone over time, but thank you so much for calling in, Justin. I hope you'll call us again or even come and be a panel guest when we have an issue that interests you. So thanks for calling us today, Justin, and
thank you.
Have a great weekend. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks a lot. You too, Tony. Take care.
You too.
Take care. Well, that was great to hear from somebody else with a perspective on the opinion. My good friend Justin Lopez, who also happens to be a libertarian. There's a lot of them about. Sadly, we're at the end of the show. Tony, we've gone over time. Thanks so much for filling in for Ty, who should be back with us next week, I think. Tell people where they can find you on social media, Tony, so they can call and carry on the conversation with you.
You can find me and my whole video posted on gun control on this topic on the full story at YouTube, and it's real simple. You just type in the full story. Hopefully, I will appear on the search because YouTube's kind of infamous for that. And I will be posting regularly videos on political commentary on YouTube, and I have my own channel, it's The Full Story. Also, if you go to Facebook, I go by the same title there, The Full Story, and you can find my commentary and some interesting articles on The Full Story on Facebook. So find me on The Full Story and get The Full Story.
Absolutely. And you can find Tony's links on the show page for today at www.xandergibb.com/radio or in the adverts on Facebook and Twitter. Tony will be back with us in a couple of weeks to bring us another Losacco report. I'm sorry, my brain is addled today. Excuse my mispronunciation. So thanks once again for joining us, Tony, and we look forward to you joining us again very soon.
Thank you, Xander. Take care.
Thanks, Tony. Take care. Have a great weekend, and give our love to Kiko.
Okay.
Bye. That was the fabulous Tony Losacco. Make sure you check him out on Facebook and Twitter and carry on the conversation. And also thanks to Justin Lopez for calling in and giving us his opinion on the issues that have befallen us as a nation this week. Oh, yes, indeed. So we wrong teeth. We will be back with you next week. I'm going to close with one of my songs just for a change. This is a snippet of a song from my first album. This is called Ideal One by yours truly, Xander Gibb. It goes a bit like this. We will catch up with you next week, and I love you all. Bye-bye.
Aha, you're my ideal one.